kind of like a game of chess.
Bone Lake is imagined as a slow-burning psychological horror film that blends survival tension with emotional unraveling, set against the haunting stillness of an isolated lakeside estate. The movie presents itself not as a loud or chaotic horror spectacle, but as an eerie descent into paranoia, buried secrets, and the terrifying weight of isolation. From the very first moments, the atmosphere feels heavy with something unspoken. The lake itself is calm, almost too calm, reflecting the sky like a mirror that hides whatever lies beneath its surface. That quiet beauty becomes the film's greatest weapon, creating a setting where danger does not announce itself, it lingers, waiting. The story centers on a small group who arrive at the secluded property seeking escape, healing, or perhaps even opportunity. Each character carries emotional baggage that slowly surfaces as the environment begins to affect them. What starts as a retreat soon transforms into a psychological battleground, where tension builds not just from external threats but from fractured trust within the group. The lake becomes more than scenery. It feels like a silent observer, present in every wide shot, every reflective surface, every moment of uncomfortable silence. As the days unfold, subtle disturbances begin to fracture their sense of safety. Objects appear misplaced. Sounds echo across the water at night. Footprints are discovered where no one claims to have walked. These early hints are never exaggerated. Instead, they are handled with restraint, allowing uncertainty to dominate. The fear grows not from what is shown, but from what is suggested. The film understands that imagination can be more terrifying than spectacle. The emotional core of Bone Lake lies in its characters. One member of the group attempts to maintain control, clinging to logic and rational explanations. They dismiss the strange occurrences as stress-induced paranoia or natural phenomena. Another begins to feel the psychological weight of the isolation more deeply, sensing that the lake holds history that has not been acknowledged. Their intuition creates friction within the group as denial clashes with suspicion. A third member becomes increasingly withdrawn, haunted by something personal that the lake seems to amplify. The tension escalates when a discovery near the shoreline suggests that the property's past may be far darker than they realized. Without relying on explicit exposition, the film layers hints of previous disappearances, unresolved tragedies, and events that were never fully explained. The narrative avoids easy answers, allowing mystery to breathe. Every new revelation deepens the sense that the characters are stepping into something long dormant, something that may not want to remain hidden. Visually, the film leans heavily into natural light and muted tones. Daytime scenes are washed in pale blues and grays, emphasizing the vast emptiness of the landscape. At night, the darkness feels complete, swallowing the edges of the frame. The cinematography often lingers on still water, subtle ripples, and distant tree lines, creating a hypnotic effect. Silence plays a crucial role. Long pauses stretch between lines of dialogue, and the faintest sounds, wind brushing leaves, wood creaking, water lapping against the dock, become amplified. The lake itself functions as the central symbol. It represents depth, memory, and the unconscious. What lies beneath its surface mirrors what the characters bury within themselves. As tensions rise, reflections in the water appear distorted, hinting at fractured identities and unreliable perception. The film blurs the line between psychological breakdown and supernatural presence, never fully confirming whether the threat is external or internal. As paranoia spreads, alliances within the group begin to shift. Trust erodes. Accusations surface. The fear of an unseen force becomes intertwined with suspicion toward one another. The screenplay explores how isolation can distort perspective, turning ordinary misunderstandings into perceived threats. Conversations become loaded with hidden meaning. Silence becomes accusatory. Even shared memories are questioned. Midway through the story, a turning point forces the characters to confront the possibility that they are not alone. A direct encounter, brief but undeniable, shatters any remaining sense of rational safety. Yet even this moment is handled with ambiguity. The film avoids revealing too much, instead focusing on emotional reaction rather than clear visual confirmation. The horror lies in the aftermath, in the realization that their understanding of reality may be incomplete. External involvement enters the narrative when outsiders attempt to investigate unusual activity connected to the property. Their arrival brings new energy but also intensifies the danger. Skepticism clashes with first-hand experience. The lake's influence appears to extend beyond its immediate surroundings, suggesting that whatever resides there cannot be easily contained or explained. The pacing of Bone Lake remains deliberate throughout. Rather than escalating into non-stop chaos, it builds in waves, mirroring the movement of water. Moments of quiet reflection are interrupted by sudden disruptions, then settle back into uneasy calm. This rhythm creates psychological exhaustion for both characters and viewers. By the final act, reality feels fragile, as though one more disturbance could shatter it completely. Emotionally, the film examines guilt and unresolved trauma. Each character is forced to confront something they have avoided: regret, betrayal, fear, or loss. The lake seems to draw these buried emotions to the surface. Flashbacks are subtle and fragmented, blending into present-day scenes until time itself feels unstable. The past and present merge, reinforcing the idea that some experiences never truly sink out of sight. The climax unfolds not as a traditional battle, but as a confrontation with truth. Secrets are exposed. Motivations are revealed. The lake's role in the unfolding tragedy becomes clear, though never entirely defined. Whether the force at play is supernatural or psychological remains open to interpretation. What matters is the transformation the characters undergo. They are no longer the same people who arrive seeking escape. The final moments of the film return to stillness. The water lies calm once more, as if nothing ever happened. Yet subtle details suggest otherwise: a lingering ripple, a distant echo, a reflection that seems slightly off. The ambiguity leaves the audience unsettled, questioning whether closure was achieved or merely implied. The story does not provide complete answers, choosing instead to leave space for interpretation. The performances in this imagined film would carry the weight of the narrative. Subtle expressions, restrained dialogue, and raw emotional breakdowns anchor the suspense. The horror is deeply human, rooted in vulnerability rather than spectacle. Every reaction feels grounded, making the slow unraveling believable and immersive. The sound design deserves special attention. Instead of relying on loud stings or predictable scares, the film builds dread through environmental sound. Water becomes a recurring auditory motif, shifting from soothing to ominous as context changes. Silence itself becomes oppressive, pressing in on the characters until it feels like a tangible presence. Thematically, Bone Lake explores how isolation magnifies what we try to hide. It questions whether environments can hold memory and whether certain places absorb the emotional residue of past events. The story suggests that running from personal truth only delays confrontation. The lake acts as a catalyst, forcing reflection in the most literal and metaphorical sense. Audience reactions to such a film would likely focus on its atmosphere and psychological depth. Rather than delivering immediate answers, it invites viewers to analyze symbolism and character motivation. Discussions would revolve around whether the events were supernatural manifestations or projections of collective guilt. That ambiguity becomes the film's strength. In the broader horror landscape, Bone Lake stands apart by prioritizing mood over shock. It aligns more closely with psychological thrillers that linger in the mind rather than relying on graphic imagery. Its horror is patient, intimate, and introspective. It respects the intelligence of the audience, trusting them to sit with uncertainty. Ultimately, Bone Lake becomes a meditation on what surfaces when silence is too loud to ignore. It transforms a peaceful landscape into a mirror of inner turmoil, reminding viewers that the most frightening depths are not always found in darkness but in reflection. The still water conceals layers of history, emotion, and possibility. And as the credits would roll, the image of that quiet lake would remain, calm on the surface, immeasurable beneath.